Hello everyone, sorry for the delay. My camera had some issues, and it took me a while to sort out, but it's fixed now. By fixed, I mean getting a new one. So, currently I'm still getting used to my new camera. Switching from Canon to Sony, especially for video shooting, because of its dual base ISO in Cine EI mode when shooting S-Log, it feels much easier than before. But I still need to adapt to a whole new set of operating habits. Anyway, at least I can continue uploading new videos now. This time, I want to make a notebook cover. Functionally, it's similar to the one in my hand. Unlike before, this design isn't based on my own ideas. It needs to meet my client's requirements, which is my daughter. She is 9 years old and has started keeping a diary, or at least something like a diary. Then one day, she gave me a drawing like this and said, "Dad, I need a notebook cover like this." "What are those three buttons?" I asked. "Snaps," she said. Yes, she wants a fully detachable cover structure and two photo pockets on the front cover, one large, one small, where photos or stickers can be changed. Considering the size of the notebook, I thought about arguing with her about the practicality of this design, especially the small one. But later then I decided not to, because arguing with your daughter or wife about what makes sense is not a wise choice. You just do what you are told. Trust me, it makes life much easier. Before I start every project, I usually make a few design drafts. One is a rough sketch of the finished product. Another is a flat drawing with exact measurements. And if possible, I also cut out a paper sample and use glue or staples to hold the pieces together. Since the front cover uses snaps to achieve a detachable structure for better balance and a more symmetrical look, I decided to mirror the design on the back cover. That way, I only need to make one template for both covers. Another thing I noticed that most similar products have a few card slots sewn inside both the front and back covers. So I asked my daughter, "Do you need these slots?" She thought for a moment and said, "Yes, but only on the inside of the back cover." The spine of this cover is the part that needs to be bent frequently, while the front and back covers are simply two flat panels. So I will choose areas with softer and better stretch for the spine and the stiffer, higher density areas for the covers. Laying in front of me are four pieces of leather forming the front and back covers. After carefully checking the grain and thickness, I decided to use the piece with the most wrinkles for the outside of the back cover. The one with an obvious inside bite mark in the middle goes to the inside of the back cover, since that's where the cut slots are and will be covered later. The thickest piece goes to the outside of the front cover, and then the remaining piece becomes the inside of the front cover. The cutting process of this project is relatively simple, except for these two windows. To cut it out properly, you can use a round hole punch to deal with the corners. Then the straight line requires more patience. Start from one end and cut along until you almost reach the other end. Be careful not to cut all the way to the end. Otherwise, the blade might easily damage the curved edge behind it. Leave a small distance. Then, use the tip of a head knife with a push-cut motion to finish the remaining part. Or you can just use the same leather knife, but cut it in a reversed direction. Okay, after cutting all the pieces we need, let's punch in some holes. I prefer to clean my workspace right after the cutting and the punching process, because these two steps can easily mess up your desk with scraps. And most importantly, it helps clear my mind too. For installing the steps on this project, usually you can just rivet them in place. That's how they are designed. But this time instead I'm using Chicago screws. For this project, each panel has snaps that hold them together. So before stitching, I can put everything together to check the fit of each part, kind of like a dry run. Because at this point, you can also check the fit between all the parts. In this case, you should pay extra attention to the length of the closure strap. Too short can be hard to close the book, and too long means the cover won't stay securely closed. Either way, it will affect the comfort of using the notebook. When you're done checking all the parts fit together properly, it's time to stitch them up. This time I used purple thread, which is her favorite color. Well, now you can see in the video how a clear mind matters throughout the process. I forgot to deal with the edge before stitching this closure strap onto the panel. Otherwise, the edge finishing process will be very tricky, and there is a high chance of damaging the leather surface of the back cover. Luckily, I was only halfway through the stitching. To avoid paying a bigger price later, I decided to just unpick the thread and deal with the edges first. If you want two layers of leather to stay in a bent position, the common method is to glue them together on a curved surface. This creates a length difference between the inner and outer layers. But that method doesn't work for today's project. The spine of the notebook cover needs to be both flexible and able to open and lay flat. So I choose to keep both pieces the same size. The downside is that when you trying to folding them, it's a bit stiff at first and needs some time to break in. To make it bend exactly along the edge I want, I sandwiched a third layer of leather into the spine. When three layers meet too, the crease will naturally follow the boundary line between them. When doing the final assembly, remember to apply some thread locker. Make sure using the blue or white one, but not the red one. Edge finishing is actually a pretty time consuming process, but it's also worth it. You can spend enough time to achieve a shiny mirror-ish finish on the edges. But I usually stop once the edge feels smooth enough to the touch. Then I will leave the rest of the work to the time itself. Alright, at this point the notebook cover is done, but while I was handling it, felt something was missing. That's right, a pen holder. I cut out a leather page like this, stitched the pen holder onto it, and added a leather cord at the top to use as a bookmark. At this moment, I felt that maybe around these solid brass screw heads could use a bit of eye-catching color to match the purple thread. By cutting out a washer slightly larger than the screw head diameter, you can make that extra ring of leather visible. But the difficult part is to finding the right color. Dyeing vegetan usually doesn't give you high saturation colors like the purple in this case. So these washers have to be made from chrome tan leather, because in theory you can dye any color you want with a chrome tan. But the downside is that chrome tan can only be dyed at the tannery. You simply cannot dye it yourself. Luckily, I found this piece of scrap leather. The purple is a bit bluish though, but I think it's close enough to match the thread color. After all, I'm not going to buy a whole hide just for a few washers. These ring binders come in many sizes. Today I'm using the A6 size with 6 rings, but after some research, I found that even among A6 6-ring binders, the hole spacing can be different too. And the refill paper sizes are also very different. The category labeled A6 include A6 or regular A6, and also A6P means personal, A6PW means personal wide, and A6 Slim means slimmer than A6 Personal. Yes, this completely blows my mind too. But luckily, if you only look at hole spacing, there are just two standards. One is the regular A6, which is 1/4 of a standard A4 sheet. That's what I'm using today. Other than that, all the other A6 sizes with suffix mentioned above are slightly longer than the regular A6 filler pages. For those, the distance between the two middle holes is also slightly longer. After putting in 2 stacks of filler paper, I felt that just one leather card as a bookmark wasn't really enough, so I made a few divider pages like this. This type of ring binder is really useful. You can simply throw any accessories you want onto these rings. It's like the molly system of the stationery world, indeed. Okay, that's all for today. If you like it, feel free to like and subscribe. That really helps. I will see you in the next video. Happy crafting and bye bye.